Yo, somebody finally said a quiet part out loud. One of the biggest podcasters in hip-hop just sat on camera and all but confirmed the nastiest rumor of the last 5 years, the one the internet has been whispering about since the Migos imploded. And it didn't stop there. Now y'all are digging up side-by-side photos saying one of these female rappers has been secretly obsessed with Cardi B for years, like studying her, copying her, shadowing her whole blueprint. Brew really thought she could play dress-up with another woman's life and nobody would notice? Before we get into it, subscribe, don't miss it. Nah? Alright, so here's the skeleton. Victor Santiago, you'll know him as N.O.R.E, the Drink Champs host, pulled up on the Jason Lee show and basically admitted he has unreleased audio of Quavo answering the Offset Saweetie question. The sit-down dropped Wednesday, April 15th, and it spread across every hip-hop blog within hours. Saweetie, Diamond Harper, really thought this story was gonna die quietly. Huh? Now let's look at the receipts that show why this backfired on her whole public image. Let's start with a quote that broke the internet this week. On the Jason Lee show on April 15th, N.O.R.E told Jason, and I quote, "I asked a certain thing to a certain individual on a certain artist and Offset's peoples were there." Bro said, "What? That's the dumbest I'm not saying, but I'm saying flex I've ever heard in my life. You don't get to speak in code and pretend you're protecting anybody." Then it got worse. N.O.R.E straight up admitted on camera, "I respected man code and took it out," before adding, "Nope, Offset, I got your back." When I heard this, I had to do a double take. You'll catch that? He said he took it out. You don't edit out a N.O. You only edit out a yes. Nah, you can't drop that sentence on a podcast and expect grown people to take you seriously. Jason also pressed him on whether he'd ever sell the clip, and N.O.R.E's reaction, per XXL's reporting, was to decline hard, even when Cardi B herself was floated as a potential buyer. He declined without hesitation. And that's when my brain snapped. Man, you telling me Cardi, the wife, the mother of this man's kids, couldn't even buy the truth? That's the real villain arc right there. Now flashback to the song that started all this. On the 2022 Quavo and Takeoff track Messy, Huncho rapped, I said, "Kesho, please, cause you too messy bitch F, and my dog behind my back, but I ain't stressing. You wanted the gang. You should have just said it. We would have blessed it." When I first heard that verse 3 years ago, I rewound it 3 times. Because Quavo doesn't miss. That was a confession dressed up as a chorus. Flip the script to Offset side. On Tuesday, October 7th, 2025, Kiari Sifa sat down with Keek Palmer on her baby. This is Keek Palmer podcast, and when she asked him straight up if he ever smashed Saweetie, he said, and I quote, "No, man. It was a rumor, man." He then added, "I feel like it was something deeper than that for the split of me and bro. I don't really want to touch on it, but it was something deeper than that." Brew, if it was just a rumor, why is there something deeper you can't talk about? That line right there, that's where he lost the plot. And the receipt that ties all of this together, Belcalis Almonzo, Cardi B herself, went on the Breakfast Club and said, "They gave me flowers. Literally flowers. Then, months later, I found out you have ed this N. A stuff like that be weird to me." That's not a rumor. That's a wife naming a timeline on national radio. Now that we got the quotes, let's connect the dots. Here's what you all didn't notice. That Drink Champs interview, it was Takeoff's last major sit-down before he passed in Houston later that same year. Which means the footage N.O.R.E is sitting on isn't just tea. It's historical evidence from one of the final times all the Migos energy was on camera in the same breath. N.O.R.E really held onto one of the last Takeoff interviews hostage as leverage? That's terrible karma. Brew. Now line up the dates. Quavo and Saweetie broke up in March 2021. Messy dropped in October 2022, a few months after Saweetie appeared on Young Miami's Kesho Please podcast, which is literally why Huncho opens his verse with, I said, Kesho Please. So Quavo wasn't freestyling feelings. That verse was a calculated response to Saweetie rewriting her image on somebody else's platform. Any smart advisor would have told her to stay off Kesho Please. But advisors can't save you when you're running your own PR. The bigger picture? N.O.R.E just said, on camera, that Offset called him trying to bury the question, and he reportedly went as far as calling Diddy, believing Puff had ownership over Drink Champs and could make it disappear. Let that sink in. If it was a clean, no, why are you dialing Diddy? You don't call in clean up for a lie. And the social circle math is wild. Cardi, Offset, Quavo, and Saweetie used the role as a quad, double dates, studio nights, birthday posts, the whole Atlanta or LA hip-hop power couple package. That means whatever allegedly happened didn't happen between strangers. It allegedly happened between people who were posing for photos together. Saweetie really thought nobody would map the overlap? That's the move of somebody who doesn't think 3 steps ahead. Now check this out. Nobody's talking about the words N.O.R.E chose. He said he asked a certain thing to a certain individual on a certain artist. 3 certains in 1 sentence. That's not a man dodging. That's a man who rehearsed a script. If nothing happened, you say nothing happened. You don't construct a 3-layer legal firewall around a no. That word choice alone tells me you're protecting a yes. Now zoom into Quavo's verse. Everybody quotes the behind my back line, but the line right before it is the real forensic gold. He said, you wanted the gang. You should have just said it. We would have blessed it. Decode that. The gang equals Migos. Blessed it equals gay permission. Translation. If she had been upfront that she wanted to jump from one Migos member to another, Quavo is saying the group would have handled it internally. That's not a man speculating. That's a man exposing an actual conversation that never happened. And Saweetie didn't catch that? That's embarrassing. Next, Offset's body language. According to TMZ breakdown of the Keek Palmer sit-down, when the question dropped, he shifted in his seat and started referring to Cardi B as bro mid-answer. Your wife is not bro. That's a verbal tick that happens when you're trying to dehumanize the person you disrespected, so the guilt hits softer. Little slip, big tell. If Offset had half a brain, he would have noticed that was a clip people would replay. And one more forensic piece. N.O.R.E said this in front of Jason Lee, the same outlet that covers Saweetie's rumors on a near-weekly basis. He picked the loudest possible megaphone. That's not an accident. That's a man who wanted it to come out while protecting his bro code alibi. Playing checkers while pretending is above the game. Now let's see how the media framed all this. XXL took the cleanest lane, framing N.O.R.E's comments as confession by omission and emphasizing that Offset allegedly tried to pull strings through Diddy to kill the clip. That framing is damning, and it matches what we already broke down. Hot 97 took the reputational angle, framing N.O.R.E's silence as a strategic spotlight grab, pointing out that his refusal to release the footage is literally what's keeping him relevant in the news cycle. Different spin, same evidence. TMZ went the tabloid route, zooming all the way in on Offset's stepping out admission to Keek and framing the whole podcast as a rapper trying to repair his public image with Cardi. Which is wild because if you're repairing your image, you don't call your wife bro on a podcast. Now the counter-narrative. Saweetie's fans are saying all this is cap because N.O.R.E never said the word yes. But those are the same people who thought Cash or Please wasn't going to come back and haunt them. If you still think Saweetie is clean after Quavo's verse, N.O.R.E's hostage tape, and Cardi's flower story, you're not being neutral. You're being biased. The media trying to spin this for Saweetie, but the receipts don't lie. But here's what nobody is saying. Okay, mainstream media wants you all to think this is just another messy hip-hop cheating rumor. Another, he said, she denied. We move on cycle. Nah, here's what they won't tell you. This was never really about Offset. This was about identity theft. I'm running with the authenticity credibility angle. Because the more I stare at this story, the more I realize Saweetie's entire recent arc looks like a woman trying to speedrun Cardi B's blueprint without paying Cardi B's dues. And that is a conversation Complex, XXL, and TMZ are too scared to have. Look at the pattern. Man, remember those side-by-side comparisons going viral this week? The ones fans on X stitched together? I'm not just talking about one matching outfit. I'm talking about hair arcs, body silhouettes, red carpet poses, even interview cadence. You all saw the TikTok thread. Saweetie replicating looks Cardi wore years earlier, just from different designers. That's not coincidence. That's curriculum. Saweetie is studying Cardi like a graduate thesis. And here's where the Offset allegation slots in perfectly. If you're already subconsciously trying to become Cardi, her look, her aesthetic, her energy, then sleeping with Cardi's husband isn't just cheating. It's the final boss of the obsession. It's saying, I don't just want to look like her, I want to be her. That's not a complex headline. Brew. That's a psychology paper. Saweetie is repeating the same mistake every manufactured persona artist makes, trying to borrow a legacy instead of building one. Remember that messy verse we broke down? The real reason it hit so hard wasn't a cheating accusation. It was Quavo calling her messy. Because messy in hip-hop culture means unfinished, inauthentic, performative. Quavo wasn't just exposing a situation. He was diagnosing a character. And 3 years later, with N.O.R.E holding their hostage tape and fans pulling up receipts on the Cardi copy-paste era, that diagnosis is aging like fine wine. Saweetie's whole persona is looking more manufactured by the day. Now think about Cardi's Breakfast Club flower story through this lens. Cardi said the woman gave her flowers first. Who does that? Who sends flowers to the woman whose husband you're allegedly seeing? A person who's psychologically tangled up with a wife, not just a husband. A person who wants to be seen, acknowledged, validated by the one she's supposedly competing with. That's not a mistress move. That's a superfan move gone feral. Saweetie wasn't just allegedly sleeping with Offset. If the fans are right, she was auditioning for Cardi's life. And here's the truth the industry won't print. Cardi is a bar-for-bar platinum plaque, Grammy-winning, cultural institution at this point. Saweetie's last real radio moment was best friend with Doha. The math isn't Maything. You can't copy a legend wardrobe and expect to inherit her throne. That's opposition, level delusion. Saweetie is playing checkers while Cardi built a whole chess empire with 3 kids, a divorce, and a comeback album in progress. Real talk? The obsession allegations aren't even the shocker anymore. The shocker is that N.O.R.E is sitting on tape that could end Saweetie's comeback before it starts, and is using it as a bookmark for his own relevance. Saweetie's whole persona is manufactured, and the scaffolding is falling apart in real time. And that's the truth they won't tell you. So what happens next? Here's what's most likely to happen. N.O.R.E is gonna keep milking this tape for every ounce of algorithm juice it's worth. He's gonna tease it on 2 more podcasts, maybe 3, and never actually release it. Why? Because the second he drops it, he loses his mystery card. Watch him show up on Joe Budden, Breakfast Club, and Matt Hoffa within the next 60 days doing the same bro code dance. And while he's touring his silence, Saweetie is gonna look desperate trying to drop music into a news cycle that's actively asking whether she broke up one of hip-hop's biggest groups. When Cardi doesn't respond directly, Saweetie's camp is gonna panic post. Mark my words. Now, if Cardi does respond, and knowing Belcalis, Saweetie is gonna get destroyed. Cardi doesn't do subliminals. Cardi does Instagram live, 90-minute rants, receipts, screenshots, addresses. We saw what she did to the blogs that lied about her divorce. Saweetie is not ready for that smoke. If Cardi decides this week is the week, every single one of those lookalike receipts the fans put together becomes ammunition on a body gang Twitter raid. Cardi wins either way. She either stays silent and looks graceful, or she speaks and ends the conversation in one live. There's no third option where Saweetie comes out on top. And Offset? If N.O.R.E decides a bro code has an expiration date, or if another podcast offers a right bag, that clip leaks and Offset's no man, it was a rumor quote on Keek Palmer becomes the most replayed lie of the year. We saw what happened the last time a Migos member tried to rewrite his narrative on a podcast. It does not end well. Looking at the bigger picture, this moment is going to go down as a week the industry stopped giving Saweetie the benefit of the doubt. 5 years from now, when people write the cultural history of this era, this is going to be the chapter where her comeback got frozen in place. Because labels don't like smoke they can't control. A&R departments are gonna look at Saweetie's numbers, look at the N.O.R.E tape hanging over her head like a guillotine, and quietly push her projects to Q4. She's watching the culture move on without her, and there's nothing she can do about it. And the bro code? That whole concept just took a nuclear hit. N.O.R.E just proved on camera that bro code in 2026 means I'll hold your secret hostage until it makes me more famous. Every rapper who ever sat on a podcast with a buddy is gonna rewatch those tapes with paranoia. This is a turning point for how this entire culture handles secrets. Whatever happens, one thing's clear. Saweetie already lost. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed uncovering the real story, smash that like button and hit subscribe so you never miss when we expose what everyone else is too scared to say. Ring that bell for notifications. And if you want more truth bombs like this, click on one of these videos next. Trust me, You'll want to see what we found.